Ladies and gentlemen, it is lovely to see you all here as well. I'm very proud that WEF has asked me once again to get involved in the dialogue around food. It's something I feel stunningly passionate about. It's something where I've taken very seriously in my own life over the last few years and tried to think, am I part of the problem? And I think if all of us can walk away from this panel and say, are we part of the problem rather than some esoteric, far-off issue, then I think we can all make a lot of progress. I don't want to depress you all, but the problems are enormous. And Ambassador McCain will outline some of this as well. But there's 8.2 billion people on this planet. 733 million of them, 1 in 11, lack access to sufficient calories. That's hunger to you and I. 2.8 billion can't afford a healthy diet. They may even be getting the calories, but they're not getting a healthy diet. It's not just about calories and quantity, it's about the quality of food as well. And I'm just looking at the other side of the equation. Just remember that, 8.2 billion people on the planet, 2.8 can't afford a healthy diet. 2.6 are either overweight or obese. What on earth are we doing? That's over 5 billion of the 8 are in imbalance in their calories. It's just madness. What are we doing? It's not some Malthusian problem. We can produce enough food. Goodness knows that Laurent will know that, and we'll bring him in a moment. We can produce enough food. We've got a farmer at the end. We can. And we can produce quality calories as well. Oh, did I mention we're also ruining the soil of the planet as well? We're ignoring local communities. And if I sound really devastated by this, it's because I am. These are terrible things. We're failing to use water. There was a brilliant panel on water earlier on today. We're failing to use it in a way that preserves. It's the most precious reserve of a resource we have on this planet. We're creating enormous amounts of GHGs, greenhouse gases as well. A third of all GHGs, as you, I'm sure, aware, because you're here, so you care, come from food production. And we're throwing away a huge percentage of what the farmers make as well. It's just devastating. It doesn't have to be this way, and that's why I've started off with the tough message, and the message will be tough as well. But my goodness me, we can have better food systems, we can have better resilience, there are recipes for better sustainability, better quality calories, we can improve corporate responsibility as well, innovate, and we can do this inclusively for all communities. We can just take down those gender barriers as well. We can do it for women. We can be regenerative, climate adaptive, better innovations, reduce those GHGs, save that soil, ensure better quality calories as well. The First Movers Coalition that WEF is doing so much work on as well is collaborating with industry, companies such as Nestle, 50+ parties, including 26 major buyers as well, collectively $900 billion of reserves. There is the will. We just need to move on and move from the will stage to the action stage in a more meaningful, large-scale way. That's my bit. The rest of it is the experts, okay? And my goodness me, what a panel we have for you. I'll just work my way down and just tell you who we've got here as well. In fact, I'm going to start from the other end because I've just remembered there was a cue from the director as well. Arnold Puech d'Alissac is a farmer in Normandy. He is the president of the World Farmers Organization. We are very lucky to have someone producing the goods with us as well. Asma, who I've just met, is a magnificent lady. She's the founder of Darjeeling Express. She's a chief advocate of the World Food Programme as well. Asma, lovely to meet you as well. Stefaan, Decraene, I've been working on the surname with him, chair of the managing board of Rabobank. The money, finding the money to finance the solutions, it shouldn't be that hard as well. Laurent Freixe is the CEO of Nestle, good to see you, sir, and Ambassador Cindy H. McCain as well, Executive Director of the United Nations World Food Programme. It's an honour to meet you again. We haven't seen each other for a few years as well. Right, let's get to some questions. Let's get to some answers as well. This is what this is all about. There are huge... I looked at some videos this afternoon. I was just doing a bit more prep in the 10 minutes I had off as well. And my goodness me, Cindy, everywhere I looked, even on just page 1, there was crisis here, crisis there. In the first 5 videos, there were 4 countries which you'd been to, which had terrible food insecurity issues. It's not just about wars, it's about drought, it's about climate as well. Just frame the situation for us, Cindy.
Well, you're correct in what you said. And first of all, thank you for doing this. This is such an important issue. And I'm grateful for every ounce of time you give to this. It's very important. You're right. There's plenty of crises around the world, and there's plenty of climate change to boot on that. But there's also situations that we can begin to help in different ways, like school feeding programs for communities that are underserved in many ways. But the crises are the ones is squeaky wheel. They get the news media coverage. They get the, we all pay attention to it. We all pay attention when there's a ceasefire, as just occurred. But what's the important part of this is what's the aftermath? So what can we do as a world community, not just me at WFP or people in various roles up here, but we need everybody on this. I can no longer rely on governments around the world to support WFP in any way. They have the ability to do some, but the truth is the problems are too big. We need the private sector. We need people from around the world that can help mitigate some of this, not just with money, but with their expertise. And that's really what I'm looking for in trying to figure out ways we can use AI and we can use different opportunities to be able to manage water differently. I mean, my friend here at EFAD and I, we've talked about water ad nauseum together for so long because it's such an important issue. But to be able to manage it and manage it in a way that a small farmer can do it in an African desert is even more important. I think lastly what I'll say is that, as I mentioned, global funding is not keeping pace, and that's the truth of it. But we all scream that, but I'm going to scream it again because it's too important. And I will follow that up with you've seen what's happened to humanitarians around the world, and that is a lack of access. We've had plenty of restrictions. We've been shot at. We've been tagged. Humanitarian aid workers are not targets, period. I can't keep saying that. We need all of you to say that. We're in a situation right now where humanitarian law, international humanitarian law, is not being observed. So to protect the people that do the job that we do, both in Gaza and other places, we need everyone's help on this to demand that humanitarians be treated in such a way where we can get the job done.
It's powerful and damning at the same time, Cindy, and if I can just follow up as well. You mentioned about conflict, and you mentioned about climate change as well. I don't want to give a pecking order, but conflict should be solvable by negotiation. Is climate change negotiable? Because it just seems to me that we're falling behind on every single parameter on our Paris Agreement aims at the moment as well. And a lot of the money that was promised, and this came up in the panel earlier on, a lot of the money that was promised for the Global South, despite the torturous negotiations every single time about this fund for this and this fund for improving the lives of people in the South. Money's not forthcoming, is it?
No. It's more importantly, you're exactly right on that, but more importantly, the Global South is paying the price for other areas of the world causing climate change. The people that can least afford it, that have the least ability to fight it, are the ones being affected the most. And so therein lies people that are right here at this forum to not only take action, but for those of us to demand it from them. We can no longer, produce greenhouse gases and everything else around the world at the rate that we're doing without realizing the consequences are going to be far greater. And so I rely on my political friends and my politician friends and all of those guys to help us out on this. But the truth is, no one's paying attention.
And the corporates, the private sector, can move ahead, Laurent. And you are fairly new in the job, but you've had your feet under this, I think, 5 months, you said now as well. And not only have you taken the huge challenge that Nestlé faces. Nestlé faces many challenges as well, as do all big corporates as well, and certainly in the food sector as well. But you've got to basically commit to better food systems. You've got to show leadership as well. There are 4 or 5 food companies in the world, of which you are one of the most preeminent, that have to show extraordinary leadership. That's a hell of a responsibility as well. Just tell us a little bit about what you're doing and how corporates can lead.
That's a huge responsibility, and this is very, very exciting at the same time. We are probably ahead of one of the deepest and most important transformations of modern times. when you're saying that the food systems account for 30% of the global emissions. So it's not minor. And if we want to tackle climate, we need to tackle food systems. And we know that this is coming essentially from ingredients. And by the way, we see the impact of climate on the availability of food ingredients. There is scarcity on cocoa, there is scarcity on green coffee, and that's triggering massive impacts in terms of food inflation. So that's one aspect. One other aspect that is important to bear in mind, and Arnold, of course, will confirm, there is little motivation from the next generation to go into farming. Only 5% of the farmers are below 35 years of age, and the median age is more close to the late 50s, early 60s, which is a real concern, because there are options, there are opportunities, and we need the youth to be enabled and motivated to go into farming. And there are solutions, and certainly regenerative agricultural practices are the solution. I think we can motivate the next generation and the current ones, of course, to apply them, because this builds up resilience, this protects nature and biodiversity while tackling the climate challenge. And the good news is that this improves income. Because it wouldn't improve income, would have no chance to succeed.
That's my first intervention here as well.
Yeah.
Regenerative process. I mentioned Malthus at the top, and I'm pretty sure you're all aware of the old concern that we were going to run out of food before, as the population grew exponentially and what have you. But you're telling me that regenerative food practices can be part of a large-scale solution? Because I don't want regenerative being tinkering at the sides. Oh, we've got this little project here, and the other 90% of our production is killing the soil, is ruining the soil for future generations.
Yeah.
Regenerative can be
Absolutely.
Widespread and part of the solution.
Absolutely, because it protects the soil, restores water cycle. You were referring to the water issue. 70% of the water goes into the agriculture. So it got fundamentally everything right, including the fact that it improves income. Our pilots showed that it can go anywhere between 4 to 20%, depending on the environment and the commodity. The thing is that you need to go, and this is where is the challenge, through the transformation process. And this is not a minor one, in the sense that you need to convince 570 million farmers on the planet that they have to change the way they are doing what they've been doing for
we can't
decades.
persuade 570 million in one go.
No.
but surely, looking at the, I don't know, 500,000 farmers on the planet, the million farmers on the planet who are going ahead with this, I'm plucking numbers, I don't know.
Yeah.
If it's producing better income, it's producing a better environment, it's producing better soil, I presume it's actually creating a better sense of community as well.
Yeah.
And maybe encouraging those young people to get into farming. Why are we not doing this? No, I'm going to come to you later. You'll get plenty of time to interrupt later, and I really want that to happen. But I'm going to work my way down. You're just going to have to wait for 3 more people.
I respect your advice.
but Laurent, I know that I'm going straight into the issue, but why? Why is it not being more widespread?
We are doing it. We are absolutely convinced that this is a massive game changer. And we are also convinced that we cannot do it alone. So we are motivated to mobilize all our resources. We got 600 agronomists everywhere in the world helping farmers move into those regenerative practices. We are motivating the farmers also to share experiences, and because there is no better one to convince a farmer than another one that has started and sees the benefit. So we are absolutely committed, and one of the commitments maybe to highlight is that we took the commitment to buy 20% of food ingredients through regenerative agricultural practices by 2025. We have already achieved that number. We talk about 4 million tons sourced from 46 countries.
So 20% of the product... I'm sorry, I don't mean to... This is really important, and we'll get through. 20% of the product that Nestlé sources is now from regenerative farming.
Absolutely.
And you've done that.
Yeah.
So what's your next target?
And the commitment is to get to 50% by 2030. But we don't praise the day because we know that there is so much to do. And we call
that is
for
fantastic, I have to say. And again, working with the likes of the First Movers Coalition will give people more knowledge as well. That's just brilliant. Stefaan Decraene, it seems to me then, given what I've just heard from Laurent, which was a lot more hopeful than what I heard from Cindy, I've got to be brutally honest. I've got to be brutally honest that actually the finance case is there. The finance from amazing banks that, and I had a Dutch lesson earlier as well. I know what the boer Rabo stands for. It's as in boer as in farmer. So we all learned something then. Yeah. You've been involved with the...
Yeah.
Indeed.
Yeah.
You've been involved in farming as a bank for generations. Yeah. It's a no-brainer. The finance should be there, or is it?
Thanks for the question. And you're right. Rabo is standing for Raiffeisen, which is a cooperative bank, and the BO is standing for Boeren, which is farmers.
So there you go.
So it's in our...
You knew that, didn't you?
It's...
I did. Oh, okay. I'm sure you did, sir.
It's in our DNA since 125 years that we are financing farmers, not only in the Netherlands, but also outside, from Brazil to New Zealand to Australia to the United States. So all the big producing countries, we try to be there. And we do that for the big farms, but also for the smallholders. And we're still making profits. We never made losses in 125 years. So if somebody's asking me, is there a business case?
I'm having a real problem understanding why we have a problem when there's profit from regeneration and there's profit from financing agriculture. Makes you wonder, doesn't it? Why have we got this huge problem?
Well, I fully agree with what Laurent was saying. Recently I was in Brazil and I visited large farms, very large farms. And if you look there, the way they are, and the level they're reached already on regenerative agriculture, it's huge. So, but they have the scale, they have the economies of scale because they are big. Our big challenge must be of the food processors, of the banks, of the retail distributors, is to also get that kind of information, that kind of innovation to the smallholders. And that's the big issue. How we get the innovation, the knowledge, which is available with the food producer, which is available at the bank, how can we get that to the smallholders? And that's the big challenge that we have, I think, in the years to come. That's one. Second thing I would like to say, because we want to do more. How can we do more? Is at some point in time we have to finance the full chain. From farmers, I'm very happy there's farmers here, because I'm here since a few years, and we are always talking about food, and the farmers were not there. It all starts with the farmers. If they don't change, we can have a lot of discussions, nothing will happen. So they have to be motivated to change. I'm so very pleased to...
No, I'll hold off. Yeah. I'll hold off to carry on.
Yeah. So what we try to do is to have the full chain, from farmers to food processors, to the packaging, in fact, to the retail distributors. And at the end of the road, it depends on us. Are we willing to pay for more, what I'm calling green food? Are we willing to pay for that? And this whole discussion we have today, what's the true value of food? And at a certain point in time, if I make the comparison with energy, why we have a lot of us, solar panels, or we are driving electric cars? Why? Because it was subsidized. Or a fuel car was taxed. In the bank with us in the Netherlands, only electric cars. Why? Because the other ones are taxed. So at a certain point in time, I think, in Europe, the biggest budget is going to agriculture. We don't ask any increase of the budget.
But is it going
it's just
to
a reallocation of the budget to come to true value of food.
But is it going to agriculture, which is keeping the status quo, rather than going to agriculture or parts of agriculture that actually change from non-regenerative practices? Is there a discrimination in the financing available? Because that, which is the kind of point you were making, is if you incentivize or de-incentivize an old type of way of farming.
We are giving reductions on the margins on those farmers who are going in that direction, who are doing that transitions. We are pushing that. Yeah. We have to put, just for the Netherlands, 3 billion available. And also where we have a time, because if you do a transition, it's not in a few months, it takes years. So we should be capable of financing that gap. That's what we're trying to do.
And you mentioned the very big farms and you mentioned the small ones as well. As McCain, how do we make this inclusive for the small farmers, the farmers who don't want to turn vast tracts of land that we've seen in Brazil into these mega farms that we see across the prairies as well? How do we enfranchise small farmers? How do we enfranchise women as well in this whole debate?
Well, the way the conversation goes everywhere, you get the feeling that everyone is only talking about farmers as men, when more than half the farmers are female.
Right.
But of course, the big problem is that around 13% of those farmers own the land. Ownership makes a huge difference, massive difference, because it is maybe in our DNA, but women want security. They want surety. Often people ask, why do Asian women wear gold in their hands? It is our safety net. So you can sell the gold and you'll be safe. So the thing with women who don't own their farm, unsurprisingly, the yield on the farm where they are working is less than if a man was working. They don't own it. I think that we really need to address what is happening to women. Women who are farming are almost on the fringes of society. You don't see them only when someone is actually going out looking for them and you're talking about them. But do we listen to them? Are they on the table? Do they have a seat on the table? Yeah. The problem is that when small-holding female owners or not owners do not have a seat on the table, you do not understand what their fears are. You cannot actually get them to then change the way that they are farming. We need these female farmers and all farmers to get the education, the training, the confidence. And I think it has to be a community-based thing.
Yes.
It has to be their own people. It cannot be people dropping in from outside. The outsiders are always seen with great suspicion. And if you're not a farmer, you're coming from outside, they don't want to really trust you.
Asma, the first point is I live next to a farm. She's my neighbour, her name is Rachel, and she is magnificent, and she owns 400 acres, and I wouldn't mess with her. She's a brilliant farmer. So there are great examples on my own doorstep as well. But you mentioned it has to be community-based as well. Really difficult question. How do you change mindsets, which I guess have been going on for generation after generation after generation? Where does it come from to change the mindset of a community and allow that female ownership and empower those women with education?
It's not easy. I accept that. But the thing is, in my lifetime, I will not die till I see patriarchy shaken so much that a woman feels the land she walks on, the trees that she touches belong to her. It is absolutely our right to feel we own the land, because the blood, sweat, and tears that go into farming, women or men, but it's harder for women. And I'll tell you why. My first time I had gone to see a farm supported by the World Food Programme. This lady, the first thing that struck me is that she told me her age, and it was the same age as mine, and she looked a lot older. She had aged in the sun. She was so proud. She had her dignity. She owned that land. And in that farm, Khaldia took me and she showed me her farm, and I could see all the other farms, all absolutely crammed with trees, but not her farm. And I asked her, you've less spaces between. She said, yes, I'm giving them space to grow. I'm giving them space to become powerful. And she owned the land, and she took that initiative. And she also told me that there were times when she left the land fallow to recover. And when you own something, then you care a lot about it. And I think that one of the things that we need to do is to talk about ownership, but also, the First Movers Coalition. It's a great initiative, because here you're talking about, getting in the heavyweights, public, private, people who are doing this as charity philanthropists, coming in there, but they can actually make a difference by leveling the ground between men and women, by actually creating a cooperative where you have the same standards, where women and men come in and are trained. The problem is that we're having these discussions about money, about soil, and yes, 80% of natural habitat deforestation is because of farming. We have a serious problem.
Yes.
We've got a problem. We are growing very poor quality produce. There's mass production, so much use of fertilizer. I'm Indian. I'm appalled at what is happening around in India, in a lot of countries that are growing mass amount of food. The nutritional value is so low.
Yes.
And it is true in many, many societies. Women eat last, girls eat least. When the nutritional value of what they're eating is so low, it has a massive impact. And on girls who will go up to become, unfortunately in many societies, young mothers. They are anemic, they're not nourished. So it's not just an academic thing that the food we're growing is not it doesn't have the nourishment it requires, the soil is poor quality. It is life.
Yeah.
We are playing with life, and many of us in this room or those who are watching online, you're going to have your name on the door. You're the CEO of a company. You're very powerful. When you go, your name will be taken off that door, all your belongings packed in a box and given to your loved ones. Is that your legacy, that you were CEO? Don't you want your legacy to be that you left a generation malnourished? You left women in a society walking on soil powerful. We need to change the conversation about just beyond, I am the head of this is what I'm trying to do. I think we all need to really understand that this is our one chance. Every day we live one day less.
Asma, that's incredibly powerful, and I don't want to break the flow, but I better get to Arnold as well, because I really want to hear, and thank you, by the way. You've made me think as well, and every man in this room probably is guilty of a degree of patriarchy as well. Although my daughter's my wife as well, sometimes I don't feel I am, but I am. I know I am, but thank you. Arnold, we've talked a lot about farmers. We've talked a lot about farming as well. Can you lay the foundation of just the enormous challenge that farmers have every single day, let alone farmers who are actually trying to change centuries-old patterns of farming as well? It's a gargantuan task. I can't imagine how hard your job is as well. Just lay us really out for our audience of how you're doing and how difficult it is.
Be aware that in 1 century, we multiplied the food production by 5. We increased the population by 4. We were less than 2 billion 1 century ago. And really, it's the success of the farmer everywhere in the world. Beside that, we have seen some effect with the climate change. We oblige the farmer to move and to adapt first. But to arrive at mitigation or carbon storage, really the diminution of the carbon emission, you have to invest and you have to reimburse your investment. And at the beginning, I want just to moderate the purpose of Laurent, you diminish your income. Why? Individually, I will do that. If the market, if I am not more paid by the processing industry, why I will do that? Even all the farmers are aware of the sentence written by Saint-Exupéry in Terre des Hommes, you never own a land, you borrow them from your children. And everybody do that in his enterprise. A CEO borrow the enterprise to the next generation and to the people who will follow. But for the land, really, when your income is 40% under the average income of the other citizen of your country, you have also already a lot of problem on your shoulders. That's enough. And the sign of the market, the demands, is not enough clear. Even some companies like Nestlé, like Pepsi, like Danone, like Illy Café, etc., are going in the right direction. It's a weak sign compared to the massive change we have to do. And that's the first thing I want to say. And second thing, don't oppose the wording. Here we use the word regenerative. I love this word. Some others use the word ecology. It's go in the same direction. It's always have a better soil and have the more circular economy in your system.
This is the part where you can all interact, and I know Laurent wants to come back straight away, because I think the clear tension is very much between big food production business and, of course, the farmers themselves. So, Laurent, did you want to come back in on that?
I agree with Arnold, and I think we are saying the same thing, that in transition you need to invest, and of course to impact income before eventually getting the higher income. This is where Stefaan, this is where we, the largest players, enter into play. One of the things we are doing, and I think the industry should be doing, is that we historically have been paying for quality. You refer to nutrient density. We want to pay for quality. Premiums. What we are doing now is that we integrate in the dimension of quality regenerative practices so that the farmer is rewarded for applying those practices. We have a very interesting program. So we do it for dairy, we do it for many commodities. We have a very interesting program in Ivory Coast, for instance, and Ghana, on the cocoa production, where there's a real issue. And everything is connected, of course, including child labor. We make sure that we, because everything is connected to poverty, so we motivate, incentivize the farmers to put the children at school. That's one element, but also to apply raise practices so that they can get premiums and raise their income. So we integrate all of that into one type of intervention. I think that's the beauty also of those programs, that you tackle many things at the same time. I think it's one of the issues that most of the time we try to slice and dice the issue, that we should try to find end-to-end solutions covering the social dimension, sustainability.
Before I ask Cindy about the role of long-term investments as well, it is very clear to anybody involved in agriculture that you are one harvest away from disaster. You are one climate change event away from disaster as well. So asking the food industry to pay for regenerative farming over a longer-term basis, having longer-term contracts, regardless of one poor harvest, of one poor year, from the financing point of view, from the food production point of view, I would imagine it would answer a lot of the problems that Asma was talking about, that Arnold was talking about, and that Cindy's talking about with food insecurity issues as well. I'll ask you two first about this, Stefaan and Laurent, and then I'll get the response from the other three as well, if I may. So, longer-term investment rather than season by season, that is absolutely pivotal for, I think, a lot of what we're talking about here.
No, it is, because this is a very, very deep transformation, embarking hundreds of millions of farmers and an entire food system. We should not be so short-sighted and looking at the impact of climate events. I'm thinking of cocoa prices that are reaching historical highs, 5 times higher than the average of the previous 10 years. You know, what does it mean compared to investing a few percentage points of what you buy of your income in building up resilience and improving yields and improving income? So this is the short term versus the long term.
And Stefaan,
right.
The financing is available regardless. I mean, again, obviously, the banks have to make a return. The banks want to make it, otherwise they can't grow capital and they can't lend out more money as well. But just tell us your attitude to long-term financing to farming.
Sure, but like I said in the beginning, it's all about the change. So we can look at long-term financing. We will finance a farmer on one condition, that if you do it at the long term, that they have a contract with the food processor, and the food processor has a contract with the retail distributor. At a certain moment in time, we can only do that if the chain is working. And so that's one of the reasons I'm always coming to Davos.
The chain has to work.
Yeah.
From small farmer.
You see a lot of collaborations between the bank and the food processor, even between food processors, between the PepsiCos and the Nestle's, and I think that's what we have to see more.
Is the farmer getting the benefit of that as well? As the small farmer in the global south, is the big farmers in Brazil, as the medium or large-sized farmers in Normandy, are they getting the benefit of it?
But the farmers, they are entrepreneurs. I always say the farmer is an entrepreneur. They can calculate very well. They work 7 days on 7, 24 on 24. They want to invest on one condition.
Do you really think that someone who wants to be an entrepreneur would become a farmer?
I think so, yeah. I really think so. I have a lot of respect for farmers.
I think they have such a love of their... You've got to love the job to be a farmer more than want to make money, haven't you?
But an entrepreneur, you decide.
Yeah.
You decide in a market with rules, but you decide. You are, in this case, an entrepreneur. Okay. You have not an income with falling wage, with falling at the end of the month. Really, you expect to produce something, plants, livestock, eventually services for the society, but it's mainly your production. And in this case, you are an entrepreneur. The industry, the EV industry of the EV industry. When you invest in agriculture, in land, you need a generation to reimburse the land you are buying. And if you can't buy the land, you need to lease the land. And what Asma underlined, the importance to have a leasing, a long contract for the farmer.
Security. In
Asia, in Africa, it's a huge problem, and especially for the women.
And Cindy, this addresses a lot of the issues you want to talk about.
Mm-hmm. Let me start with just this, if I may. I'm going to take this back to the basics. Food security is national security. Without food security, no matter the size of the country, the size of the farm, no matter the size of the community, without food security, there is no national security. So food brings security with it. In terms of innovative ways that we use, anyway, at WP, one of my mentions was the school feeding programs. We actually take communities, they're all involved in it, either growing or cooking, et cetera. But it brings everybody into the community and also raises the level of nutrition that's actually entering. It's been very successful for us. Empowering women, as you mentioned, is the most important thing you can do. We'd like to get away from emergency food, put them on and get them into the farms and be able to, but they can't do it without financing and they can't do it without help. So that's how the things that we work with, if I may very quickly, government debt swaps is something we've been working on lately. Blended finance models, combining public and private. Resilience programs that are funded different ways. We're looking for any way to creatively fund in a better way these smallholder farmers, especially the females, in making sure that then we can give them a leg up. And that includes education for them and also financing in smaller ways like cash-based transfers in some way, maybe not quite that small, but anyway, there's a number of ways, but we have to support the women in the community. And I think lastly, if I may, climate-smart agriculture. We were talking about all the mitigations that we need to be doing, climate-smart farming and agriculture, and using tech to do that. And there's not enough tech used, in my opinion.
Yeah, we had a great panel a couple
I'll
years
speak
ago.
to underdeveloped countries. I know His Royal Highness can speak to that as well.
Well, I think it was 2 years ago we had the CEO of Bayer on as well. And how about this for great technology? You know, we talk about GMOs and we're all terrified of genetically modified foods. But the CEO of Bayer at the time was saying to me, no, we don't put extra stuff in. We're playing with the DNA that's already there to create better water resilience now. And then suddenly my mind went, this is amazing. We're not actually injecting some terrible external factor into our seeds of barley, wheat, corn, whatever it may well be. What we're actually doing is improving the DNA that's already there. That stuff was blowing my mind. And that goes right to your point about innovation and science and technology. Asma, have you got any examples for us? You've laid down a very powerful case of just how challenging it is. In fact, you and Cindy it's really hard to listen to just how tough it is, especially for the small farms in these war-torn areas or for women trying to own their farming. Can you give me an example of where it's working or actually where you've seen, actually, this is how it can be?
I went to a female cooperative in the Bekaa Valley in Lebanon. This was the spring of 2023. And the first thing I noticed when I walked in was it was a game of two halves. There was this huge group of much older women, the grandmothers, and a lot of young women. And this little cooperative, which began more than 5 decades ago, they were pickling, they were preserving, they were essentially doing what used to be done in the past in the hills there in Lebanon. But because of the financial crisis and people not being able to afford food, a lot of these young women came to learn from the women how to pickle, how to kind of use the aubergines, the monet to make it, they were making za'atar, many different versions. And what the World Food Programme had done is got them this big kind of machine to make labneh. And they were selling this to the Middle East. And the head of this whole cooperative, she met me and said, welcome to what we used to call our cave. Today it is a castle. What I saw in her eyes was such pride, dignity. So I saw this working, and it works. It works because we don't want to live, women don't want to live hand to mouth, begging for handouts. Just give us the pathway. Do not block our way. Do not make us stumble on enormous amounts of hurdles, which men will not go over. Give us a pathway, and we will excel. And here I saw it. I was so impressed.
Okay, I've just seen the time. I will kind of obey it today. Arnold, I want to start off by looking at more solutions as well. We've covered a lot of ground, and all of you have actually, from the start, we didn't just address the challenge, we addressed the solutions as well, and I'm so grateful to all of you for that. Arnold, we need ecosystems of interest as well. We need the financiers, we need the governments, we need the private enterprise, and we need the farmers as well. We need everybody on board. We need the consumer to value the food they eat as well. Tell me where the leadership has to come from in this coalition of interests.
We need the retailer also. The retailer, they sell a big part of our products, and without their help, if you put on the shelters the good products beside the other with no sign, with only the margin who interest them, at the end, we are not going in the right direction, and we need them. And I don't see them enough in all this public arena. After, really, the stability. All the country where you have stability, you have the private enterprise, we will invest with government. When you have no stability, you have some wonderful country for the quality of the land in the middle of Africa, where nobody wants to invest, but it's where you have a huge potential. And that, I can't change that. But on the other, I'm sure that farmers' organizations, helping by the processing industry, are able, in a framework given by the states, to solve the issue.
I hate to say it, but in the current environment, is more regulation the answer for the retailer? I mean, how do we... You say we want the retailers to do it, but we need the consumer to want the product as well. So why would the retailer move if the consumer still wants cheap food?
It was the question I asked to Klaus Schwab, Professor Schwab, 2 days ago. And he told me, we need regulation. Even everybody in this place is in favor of the free market. We need a certain level of regulation. Not too much, but not only a free market without rules.
Laurent?
Yeah, the consumers want the products. They want better products, they want more sustainable products. The issue is that they are not really ready to pay for it. So that's the challenge that we face.
Can they pay for it? I mean, we've just seen I'm loath to go there, but we've just seen a change of presidency in the United States based pretty much on the cost of living crisis. If it came back down to the economics more than anything else, probably.
Inflation is a reality. Food inflation is a reality. Nowhere in the world, including Switzerland, you would find consumers telling you food prices are low. No, everyone would complain. Food prices are really high. And they have an impact on the household.
When I go to Migros up the road there, I love I go straight to the fruit and the veg, and the quality of the food is fantastic.
Yeah, it is.
Migros, there are other retailers are available, but I mean, it's my favourite thing in Davos is going back to my apartment and steaming some broccoli. I was like, terrible, isn't it?
You're right, and we come back to what Arnold was saying, that brands that talk to the consumers have a role to play. We are conscious of that.
You do.
And the retailers have a role to play, there is no doubt. To nudge the right behaviour.
Rather than regulation, discrimination from the financiers, though?
I don't like the word discrimination.
Pushing more sustainable farming incentives.
Yeah, but that's what we are trying to do by giving cheaper funding to those.
Your shareholders happy.
But we have the advantage to be a cooperative, so profit maximization is a topic, but it's not my primary topic. So we can, as a cooperative bank, we can really try to have an impact on those transitions. I always say that I'm the honor to lead the bank since 2 years, and when I arrived at the bank, a lot of people thought that we were the greenest bank in the world. We are not, because we are in agriculture, and today in agriculture has an impact on climate and nature. But if there's one financial institution who can finance the transitions, then I think it's Rabobank, and that's what we try to do.
Okay, I've got time for one very quick round, and it will literally be a couple of words each, 10 seconds, 15 seconds each. So one of the okay, let's go for the lowest hanging fruit, the one thing that we can do easiest to make a change today, tomorrow. And I'll start off down that end with Arnold, and I'll work my way over to Sarah as well. What's the one thing that's the easiest thing that's not being done, Arnold?
Contract. Nobody used the word contract. We need contracts in the food chain. And it's work like that? Everybody who try to have a contract for his house, for his job, we need contract.
Asma.
We need stories. We need stories to make it look sexy, exciting. We need to make agriculture something that everyone is interested in. So we need storytellers.
Oh no, you just said we need Jeremy Clarkson. Did you just say that? Did you just say, because he's the best storyteller that farming's had for a long, long time. Like him or loathing.
I differ, my opinion is
although she did use the word sexy, and Jeremy Clarkson, they don't go together. Absolutely. Stefan, what do we need?
Not my type.
Something we didn't discuss about, perhaps a topic for the next time, it's food waste.
Yeah.
We are talking about food security, and we are talking about more green agriculture. 30% of the produced food is wasted. 30%.
I know.
Work on that is, I think, a big challenge for all of us.
And we eat too much of it in the West as well.
Yeah.
Laurent?
No, I agree with everything that has been said. Maybe one...
Apart from the Clarkson bit.
One idea, one idea that we need to motivate the young generation to get into agripreneurship. Only 5%, and they can help the transformation.
Cindy McCain.
Building partnerships and using technology. The two biggest things I believe we can do, especially in the field I'm in.
I'm always proudest when I get to work with Tanya and the team on the food panels, and it means a lot to me to hear so many brilliant people and to be with such a brilliant audience as well. So, first of all, I'm just going to thank everyone. Arnold, Puech, D'Alissac, Asma Khan, Stefaan Decraene, Laurent Freixe, and Ambassador Cindy McCain. Thank you all very much indeed.